Thanks everybody for joining us today for our first Oklahoma Business Analysts Meetup. I want to thank everybody for joining and coming in person today. I also saw we had some online. I want to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Carly Rachels. I'm the Enterprise Agile Coach at the Office of Management Enterprise Services for the state of Oklahoma. Misty and Drew and I have kind of worked hard with our team to start organizing this. And I'm going to kind of throw it over to them so they can introduce themselves and talk about what they do. Drew first, and then we'll go to Misty. And Misty's going to present to you guys with some information. And then to our guest speaker.
All right, so I am Drew Long. I love this title, IT BA Accountability Manager, which really just means BA Manager over at OMES. Our team is doing some really amazing things. We are bringing in true Agile to the entire state of Oklahoma, and we're making some really impressive gains on the way people do work out here. Our motto at OMES is to get stuff done, and we are doing exactly that. This is part of that. We are hoping to have some community outreach. We want to be part of your world. So to that note, we are also hiring at the moment. If anybody's interested in knowing more about that, please find me. I'm the guy sitting over here next to the computer.
And I think all of you know who I am. My name's Misty Chancellor. I am one of the senior VAs at OMES. We had this brainstorm that we wanted to get the group back together. We used to have these meetings quite often, and we thought, let's give it a try and see what happens. Okay, so we threw together a vision and mission for the group just because that seemed like a good idea. We want to be leading catalysts for innovation and professional development for business analysis in Oklahoma. And to do that, get-togethers like this really, really help. I'm not going to read that to you. You guys know how to read. So let me know when you're ready and I'll move on. Thumbs up. All right. So just a little blurb on why networking matters. A lot of jobs are filled through networking. There are a lot of jobs that never get published. And as BAs, something that's very, very important to us is relationship building. So networking is part of that. And so moving on from there, Miss Lora, she is our speaker today. She has over 25 years of experience in business analysis, worked lots of places, worn lots of hats. I had the privilege of working with her at Love's and serving with her on the IIBA board. Fantastic individual, and really glad she's here to speak for us today. I think you can go from there. All right.
Okay. I was asked to talk to you guys about telling your stories. Not your personal story, although I have a problem with that. I do that a lot, like it's the TMI thing and I have to stop myself. But nothing like professional. It's always like weird anecdotes that people probably shouldn't know about me. But this is going to be about you telling your stories about several things that the business analyst has to communicate. Okay, so various things like you're trying to get sponsors to understand why we should go with a solution. You're trying to ensure that everyone's on the same page about what we're talking about doing and what we think we need to build. And I also went ahead and threw in there telling your BA story. Why should you let me do what I should do? Right? So things like that. Okay, so setting the stage for you guys. What are we going to talk about? I will be talking about what is the story. Like, what's the story you need to tell? Yes.
Sorry. I'm only sharing it on the screen. Just real quick. Sorry.
Oh.
Yep, I'm still sharing. Yeah. Get back over here. There you go. Sorry, guys.
All right, let's get back to this. I'm going to see if this works. Yay. I modified it as a clicker. Okay, so we're going to talk about what's the story. There are various stories you need to tell. I didn't want to focus on just one because we have to tell the story a different way depending on what the story is, who we're telling it to, things like that. So we're going to talk about what are the stories we share to tell. We will talk about the ways to tell those stories. And that's where I'm going to get a little nerdy about the brain structure and psychology. And then I will actually show you how I tell certain stories. Okay. A lot of that is going to be coming straight from international best practices, IIBA. I might have tossed a little bit of business architecture in there. I'll be like a little bit of a teeny bonus for you. And then I will talk about what you should do next with that. Okay. So what's the story? What are your goal and why people might not want to let you tell your story? Hold on just 1 second.
My apologies. It is thinking you have two monitors.
There we go.
That should be showing.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. So what are the kind of stories that we will tell? Is it going to work with me? Hold on. Let me go back over here. And that won't work. Okay. So I've grouped it into 3 things. Talking about your requirements. How do you visualize your requirements so that people that help you get to the right solution are on the same page with you? The other one is when you get to the point where you're asking someone for money. It's a completely different conversation with completely different visuals to tell your story. And then the final one is the telling your story as a VA. Why? Why should you let me do what I should do? So first, requirements understanding. The goal of it is to ensure we're all on the same page about what it is that needs to be met. What are the needs? Not the wants, although those do sneak in, but what are the needs? Okay. Why might you get resistance to that? Usually a VA anymore today depends on the methodology your organization is using. It depends on the resources and what they are and aren't familiar with when it comes to what you do, things like that. So I have been in cultures where they completely trust the VA. I have had a golf green for a very short period of time in my front yard. Almost every other yard I've had has been ranging from a somewhat manicured lawn with some bunny patches all the way to sticker patches, right? And depending on that culture that you're in, for example, a business analyst should draw pictures to represent our requirements, not just a bunch of words, not just gherkin, things like that. We should draw pictures. If you, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but it feels right here. If you and I are reading the same book, and it's science fiction or fantasy, something that's out of this world, because who wants to repeat things that are in the world right now? I want to escape. So we're reading a book that's not here, nothing like you're familiar with. And there are no pictures, just a bunch of words. Are you and I building the same environment in our head? No, we're not. So it's important that we build a culture that allows that business analyst to do more than just write words, put together pictures, tell the story that way. So the organizational culture is usually what's in the way there. Solution proposal. This is what's your goal when you're trying to present what we should do about it. What should we do about those requirements that we all understand? We should do this, right? And if you just talk about it or you just give numbers, that doesn't incite confidence or excitement. What is your goal when you're bringing this to someone that will give you money? You want them confident in what they're about to spend. So those are your goals with that story. What gets in the way? Inappropriate expectations between the audience and you. Inappropriate expectations of when I present some of this information, people aren't on the same page about what that means. Well, you've got some gorgeous pictures there. It's almost built, right? I actually did present a solution proposal that had a few wireframe examples, and they were so well done that they thought we'd already written code. So no code. I don't drop code. I purposefully don't. I don't want to, right? And then the last one, promoting the BA. What's the story? We want others to understand why we're here, right? Why we're here and what is the value of allowing me the opportunity to do what I do well. What's the problem with that? We don't have time for that. I get that a lot still. And I'm a principal consultant at a top 7 national consulting firm for Microsoft. I still get resistance, even at that level, guys. So if you get resistance, it's not just you, it's not just us. So patience for it. And I will be showing you and talking to you about some visuals you can build and some elevator speeches you can use to help people give you the chance. One of the hook lines I use is, you give me 10% more time up front, I'm going to save you 50% throughout the life of the solution. Right? We need to build today with tomorrow in mind. And you're in a world right now that is about instant gratification, get there yesterday. We're not going to need it tomorrow anyway, because everything's going to change. Right? And there are elements of that are true, but we still should be strategic, which is what you are about. The business analysis function is intended to help us be thoughtful, strategic, and intelligent about change, and not just fly by the seat of our pants and toss a really cool widget at the problem and hope it sticks, right? That's not what we should be doing. People still do that. Okay, are there any stories that I didn't mention that you would like to hear about if I don't talk about them? Anything else are there any stories other than, are we on the same page about requirements? Please give me money, and please let me do my job. Any other big stories that you feel you struggle to tell? Don't you hate that 7 seconds of silence? Okay. That's so good. All right. So if you think of a story by the end of this and we have time, then let me know. I do have a lot to share with you, though. Okay, which way should you go? And now I'm thinking Elmer Fudd. So, sorry, those of you that don't know me, those of you that have know exactly how my brain works with all the nuts and squirrels in the yard. Okay, what are the ways? What are the ways? Words. In some environments, that's all they let the BA do. I have worked in those environments, and I have said, thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to do what I'm going to do anyway, and I'll ask for forgiveness later. And by the time I'm done, everyone wants me on their project. And I'm like, or you let the BAs do BA work. That's great, right? Okay. So words. Now, what side of the brain do words engage? Which?
The left.
The left, the logic side, right? Okay. Data. You can tell the stories with ones and zeros, percentage of time saved, right? This function is failing to this percent. That's informative, right? Again, what side of the brain are we touching? The left. Good. Pictures. Okay. Pictures involve shape and color. What side of that? It's the right and the left. With adults, it actually still engages the left, but it tickles the right. Okay. Now, when you combine all of that stuff together, you will start bridging the gap between the hemispheres of your brain. When you do that, you introduce the possibility of people remembering things that are tucked in some little corner that they don't normally access because they're so used to doing it all day, every day, they don't need to tell you. Pictures and color. The other thing, going back to the book, if I'm an author and I write you these beautiful words, they're so beautiful, right? But then I add a picture of what I need for you to imagine. Now, are my readers closer to the same page? Yes, right? Now, unless it's a movie, we're still going to have a difference. But, right, you're closer. It will never be perfect, but you can get closer, okay? So, you notice the trend in everything I just said. You will use some words and you will use some data, but you should always have pictures if you want to be a storyteller. And I'm telling you, if I give you data and words, but I'm not doing with the flair of the pictures and the flair with fun dialogue, do I have you hooked or am I just being informative? Yeah. Am I being inspiring? Am I getting you excited about doing this change? No. When I include the pictures and I help you imagine what that future could be, are you more likely to be involved or more committed to helping me get there? You're going to be a little more committed, right? You're going to go, ooh, ooh, right? Because the response to change is naturally discomfort. It's a future that we don't know unless people hurt really, really, really bad. And then like anything's better than what it is right now, right? But usually you're moving people's cheese and they're scared they're going to be hungry because they won't be able to find their cheese. Well, it's hard. Again, I told you I'd nerd out. Fear and emotion is managed in the mid and hindbrain. The mid and hindbrain. Do you think logically there? You think emotionally. You feel there, right? Now, negative emotion is really hard to think through. That's why you get fight or flight. If you can get them excited with pictures and color, it changes the way the chemical moves in the brain. And you can get from positive hindbrain to frontal lobe, to logic, if it's positive, right? So pictures, use pictures, and preferably not scary pictures that like show a lot of really bad numbers and stuff like that, right? So like choose good pictures to use. And I'm going to show you some of the pictures, and most of the things I will show you are mostly out of the BABOK, IBA's business analysis body of knowledge. Some of what I will show you, or at least talk to you about, and if you're curious about, I will shift a little bit into business architecture. Those of you that have been doing the BA function for a while and you're getting a bit more strategic, yeah, you're starting to move into the world of business architecture, which still uses some of the same pictures, but they have other pictures on top of it, right? Okay. We talked about this. Why are words good? Well, you do need to be able to communicate certain details that a picture will not translate for you, right? So understanding what the risks or challenges are of a thing, understanding business rules behind a screen. You still have to put some words to it. So they're still valuable, but people have different perspectives of what those words mean, right? So could you imagine trying to describe the movement of data points on a screen with just words? Geez, I'm not writing that much. I love writing, but not about things that can better be represented in a picture. You use a screen mock-up. I don't have to write any words to tell you what order the fields go on the screen. I just have to tell you if there's a conditional rule about moving from one field to another, and I probably only have that for like 5% of the fields on the screen, right? So it helps you be efficient. If you're in an environment where the BAs are only writing words, no wonder people have no patience with it. Number one, words are really hard to make clear. Number two, it takes a long time if we're trying to document the details necessary for someone to really understand. And I almost said something and I filtered it. So data. I'm not sure who our other audiences might be, so I'm going to filter that. All right, data, why? Depending on your culture, some organizations will only move forward if you give them really good numerical reasons, right? You need to give numbers to prove why we should spend time and money on things. So data is helpful. Why not? It doesn't give them vision. It's not, okay, well, some people find data exciting, and those are very, very interesting individuals. But most of us don't really find data like, yeah, give me that raw file. I can't wait to dig. No, most of us don't feel that way. Okay. So especially your audience that's consuming your stories, they'll want it to support your pictures, but it's all about pictures, right? When you put beautiful effort and you've got these beautiful words with this lovely data, do people always make that objective choice? No matter what data you throw at people, what kind of a choice do they make?
Emotional.
They do. They make emotional choices. When I worked at an international car rental place, and we were implementing an incident management solution, I had all these beautiful pictures and all these great words. And you know what solution they wanted to go with? The one from that really cool guy that they golfed with yesterday. I'm not kidding. And I said, no. I didn't care what level they were. I said, no. That's not how we make decisions in business. Right? Now, what could get in your way is the right pictures for the right audience. Okay? Knowing your audience is critical. So, why visuals? Get them engaged, right? When they're engaged and they're connecting both sides of their brain, they will have things they will tell you they would not otherwise tell you. They will think of things that they otherwise would not think of. Get them curious. You start adding color and shape. I start engaging my creative side with my logic side. I start actually coming up with really cool stuff, man. Right? Getting them thinking, like I said, that bridges that logic and creativity, which gets you to innovation. Logic will not help you innovate. Logic will help you think about the things that you know and understand them. Creativity is where you connect completely different ideas together and go, ooh, wouldn't this be? Right? So one of the things that Misty mentioned, and it's probably not a really great thing to admit, but I have like an average tenure of 2.5 to 3 years. And I've been at like 13 companies in 7 industries, and I will take a tire care idea to healthcare. I'll take a healthcare idea to battery manufacturing, right? And that's because I don't put the boundaries of just thinking logically. I use a lot of pictures, and I think in color and stuff and other things we won't talk about. So, inspiring action, that's what we need to do. Telling the story, okay? If I sit in front of people and I just say, so here's my data. This is what it is. Should we go with that? No, but if I go, oh my God, look at this and look at the pretty pictures. Right? Sell it. So one of the things I really, really, really hate admitting, and I'm going to do it in front of you guys, but business analysis, you all are salespeople. You're selling change every day. Right? If a salesperson isn't charismatic and inspiring and excited about what they have to sell you, are you going to be excited about buying it? Well, you might, because you really know what you want. But most of the time, let's say that you've got these 3 options in front of you, 3 completely different companies. 2 of them give you really straightforward data. They're not really exciting. They're not really inspiring. And this other person gets you excited. Remember what I said about emotional decisioning? So your job is to make sure that the data is good so that when they make an emotional choice with your pictures, it's the right one, hopefully. Hopefully, the right one. You'll be a lot closer to doing the right one than otherwise, right? So what are we doing with that? Well, it depends. How we tell our stories depends on our purpose and depends on our audience. You know your audience. I tell my son that all the time when he starts spewing a bunch of historical facts about all kinds of things from centuries ago, and we're all like, so read the room too, okay? Know your audience and read the room. Yes, my child hit about 10 or 11. I started telling him, know your audience, son, and then read the room. Okay, so different audiences, different goals. So for business, some sneak peeks about what I'm about to show you. These are the tools I use to tell a story, depending on what story I'm trying to tell. Now, so these are the tools. How I put them together with words is what I adjust for my audience. So for the business level, this is where I'm trying to help everyone understand the business function or idea. We're not digging into details yet. I'm just trying to get everyone on the same page about what should we talk about. This is where we get a little bit more. You're starting to bridge the gap between analysis and architecture, right? So I will show you things out of the BABOK, functional decomposition of the organization, not an org chart. It's not about an org chart. You'll spend way too long and it's an HR function. If they've got an org chart, that's great. You're going to eliminate all the detail and you're just going to focus on what functions do we have that we need to understand, right? As soon as you take names out, it becomes less about me and more about the problem. Right? So it's important. There are various psychological reasons why you want a functional decomposition. Now, you might want to understand an org chart, but you don't deliver that to tell your story. You simplify it so it's easier to consume so everyone understands what we're talking about. And then the business model canvas, which helps us understand why we do what we do. And the concept model makes sure we're all talking about the same things with the same words. And we understand how those ideas connect. I'll show you the pictures in a minute. People, this is where when you are trying to understand the problem from a cultural perspective, okay? So org charts and functional decomps look really similar. You're going to see that in a minute. They look real similar. One focuses on what we do. The other helps us understand the culture around what we do. They serve different purposes, okay? So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about capability sets and motivators and things like that. Processing, process models. Have you ever looked at a procedure document next to a process model or activity diagram? Think about it. Don't you imagine it in your head? Which are you going to want to look at? All the nested words with all the if and else's? Well, if you're a coder, you probably do. But if you're business, and I show all those 15 pages of words versus a few diagrams, oh, they're automatically going to pictures. Always. You know, it's like, I think you're just working with a bunch of people that'll flip through the book and go, oh, that's flip through the book and they'll like get a heads up on what's coming with the story. Because again, they're impatient. Remember that part. They're impatient. Okay. We'll talk about some data things. Those are a little less exciting than technology. And I want you to notice the order in which I did that. You see the order I did that in. It's purposeful. Okay. Where do most organizations tend to gravitate towards first in their conversations about change? Now, you guys might not have as vast experience. Like I haven't had a long time at one company, at one culture. So I've seen some consistent, unfortunate trends out there. Okay. So when we're talking about change, which of these do most organizations gravitate towards first? What do you think? The tech. It's exciting. It's cool. You can just like put it in place and hope it goes well. Sorry. You're very fast. Okay. Now, technology is only as good as the data we put in it. The data is only as healthy as the processes by which we capture it. The processes are only as healthy as the people willing to execute them correctly, and the business won't function unless all of those work well together. Which of these is the hardest to implement change for? You don't want to answer all the time, do you? Yeah. People. Why? We talked about it a little bit today. They change. They hate change. Emotions, negative emotions, fear. And if you want to, I have a podcast out there about fear in change. I think the presentation is called Fear Schmear. And it's about overcoming that. And no matter what we do with change, and sometimes if we do this right and we let our business analysts start with the business and the people and the process, will we sometimes avoid ever touching data and tech as a change? Yes, you will. Yes. So who should be engaged in understanding and telling stories first? The VA, the technologist, the PM, the who? The VA. As soon as the business knows they have a problem, the VA should get engaged, and you can stop a lot of money from ever having to leave the door. Okay? All right. So let's talk about pictures. I told you I promised you pictures. All I've given you is words. So here we go. All right. Functional decomposition. What does that look like? Looks like an org chart. But what do you not see in there? Names. Right? Now, why does that help? Because like when we're looking at this, we're trying to find challenges, right? And if you have names on there, we say, oh, wow, we're not very good at that. If the name's not there, we're not saying, wow, you suck. Sorry. Okay. You have to tell me if I cross a line because I can easily do it. So functional decomposition. This is where we wrap our heads around what is it that people are doing functionally that help us deliver value to our customers. If I can't wrap my head around that, I won't really know where the problems are and won't really know where to dig in. right? And this is where we start getting into business architecture stuff, understanding how an organization breaks down functionally and understanding how those functions and their capabilities provide value. Now you're starting to get into architecture. Business model canvas. This helps us think holistically. It's a picture that tells the whole story, not part of the story, but the whole story. High level, right? Everything you see here is highly abstracted, very little detail. Okay. But with a business model canvas in one picture, and you notice I use business model canvases that have color. Why? Because it's more fun. No, because, and that's what I tell people, we're going to make it fun. Really what I'm doing is I'm Regina Gack, getting people less, nervous, and I'm adding color to lighten the mood. So business model canvases, what you can't see here in the detail is we start in the middle. Why are we here? And you can do this at a problem level. It does not have to be at a business level. You can repurpose business analysis you can repurpose a business model canvas as a business analysis model canvas. Okay? They come to you with a problem. What's the value proposition this area that you have a problem in is trying to serve? Okay. Who cares about that? It can be an internal customer. Who are the customers that care about that? How do they break up? So like claims management, you've got the claims team, you've got the fraud team, you've got the underwriting team, you've got the accounting team, and you've got the marketing team. All of them care about it. But if you do this, it forces you to possibly think about all those groups and not just about the claims team, which is what everyone gravitates toward. My claims run slow. Okay, let me go to the claims department. What if they're not the ones with the actual problem? Okay, so talking about that, and then you go to the left side where you say, okay, what are the activities that are performed? What are the resources you use to do that, and do you partner with anyone? And then your cost benefits on the bottom. So this is meant to help people design a business from the ground up. But you can actually use it, repurpose it for business analysis on a focused challenge you're having, okay? And then the concept model. This is, again, really high level. It gets us thinking about the things that are impacted, okay? So in the claims management, which is my favorite example, we say something about, policyholders with policies and claims and claimants and claims representatives, right? So use these pictures to get people on the same page about why are we talking? Then you can start understanding the people part of it, right? So this is the people. So now we do start getting into names, but very, very carefully. We've already uncovered what the problems areas are, so we don't have to talk about it being a problem function. Now we're just saying, how can we help you overcome that problem? Now it's okay to use names. Okay. Capability. This is in the BABOK, but it's mostly used in the world of architecture. Capability models are more often used in architecture than business analysis. But what this is about is understanding what are the skill sets of the people. You match them up to the capabilities that your technology provides. And now you can show a story if you heat map it. When I do mine, I don't have these colors per function, right? I use this as a heat map. Green capabilities are capabilities that from a measurement perspective or from a gut feel, if we don't have a lot of KPIs, these are good to go. Don't worry about them. Yellow is, you might want to start taking a look at that. Red, the world's going to end. It's a dumpster fire if you don't address this. Okay? So heat map your capabilities. If you heat map it, again, we're using color that has meaning and tells a story without you saying anything, right? And then personas help us understand the motivators of people. Not always useful. Know the story you're trying to sell. If you are trying to tell a story about what maybe you're producing a product that's externally facing. What do people care about? You're going to want to use personas. You can use personas internally to help you understand how to help people overcome a change, right? How to adopt a change. It's really good for that. I don't use personas as much when I'm trying to design software per se for internal use. It's a little less of it's more marketing-y and more adoption use for personas. But again, you do have some words in there. But what's added to it is shape and color. If you're telling stories, use shape and color. Now, process. My go-to is BPMN. How many of you have done BPMN? Okay. BPMN is so powerful, guys. I'm sure you've done flowcharts in Visio, right? Okay. But when you have a flow chart, it's monochrome and it has like circles, squares, and diamonds, and that's it. Right? With BPMN, it has multiple shapes. It has icons that have meaning, and it helps you understand decision flow a lot better. So BPMN is when I do this with when I do functional decomposition, flowing into SciPoc and doing this, I have big companies that you would think do this kind of stuff. And they apparently don't. And they go, oh my God, we've never had conversations this important before. Can you do this for everything? No, because you contracted me for this. This is where it stops. Value stream analysis. How many of you are familiar with that? More of you probably. That's a Lean Six thing. I'm going to go on a limb and hopefully not upset any of you. Lean Six is best used for micro problems. It's for micro view. It's intended to look at detail. I mean, number of seconds between steps. That's not an abstract conversation. So you use value stream if you're in a part of telling your story where you're trying to understand why is this section of this process inefficient. It'll tell that story for you. But before you get there, I very seldom have to do value stream analysis because I'm usually looking at process models and drawing pictures about that and building roadmaps and cool stuff like that. And I don't dig into that. Even Toyota contacted the company I work for and said, hey, can you guys come and teach us how to not focus so much on lean? Can you come in and teach us how to do BPMN flowing into these other two things? Because we've realized that Lean Six doesn't innovate. It improves efficiency. Very different concepts, right? So if you're trying to tell a story about efficiency, value stream. If you're trying to innovate, BPMN. Okay, so those are the stories. Activity diagrams are really great to tell the story about how people interact with a detailed thing. So how many of you are doing, this is probably not going to have any hands. How many of you do use cases still? I love you guys. I love you guys. So how many of you are only writing user stories with something like Gherkin acceptance criteria? Okay, sorry. I get real frustrated when I get that. You do some of both. That's okay, right? So use cases are really good when you have a brand new screen, especially if it has any complexity, because it gives the experience understanding, but it's all words. Yeah. Activity diagrams are a direct visual representation of a use case. So if you're trying to tell a story about how someone experiences a screen, don't give them the use case words, give them the translated diagram. They'll consume it better. They might actually even read it. I know, right? Okay, what about data? You get a huge spreadsheet with a bunch of stuff, or you get pretty pictures. What are you more interested in going to first? Yes. Okay, pictures. Now, I didn't put a data dictionary in here. It's because it's all words. But the ERD is a simplified, more abstract understanding of your data dictionaries, but also gives you flow and relation understanding, right? And that helps you understand how things are related, which makes it a lot more effective for you to tell a story about why the data should be structured the way it is. How many of you do ERDs? Probably almost none of you. How many of you have to rely on your technologist to do the ERD? Yes, most of you, probably. How many of you get yelled at if you do an ERD? Probably none of you. But maybe. At our place, I did. The very first ERD I did, we had a Microsoft DBA who got really offended, and I had to tell him, this is the only way I know to tell you this story. Right? I said, it's like when your mom asked you to try broccoli, right? And she said, you try it once, you don't ever have to eat it again. Yeah, he wanted to eat that broccoli every day when I was done with him. Sorry, really did. Almost keep it ish about it. State transition, you talk about a record type and the statuses it can go through. You can do that in a state transition table. Have any of you seen a state transition table? Oh, they're so ugly. I mean, like, who wants to look at that matrix? It's so hard to read. Or Data flow for dummies. Okay. Sorry. State transition and data flow. Those two are really, really, really helpful. And they actually most effectively come out of what you do, not the data resource. You're the one that understands what is the thing we're working on and how does it flow through a process and how does that affect its status and what people touch it as it moves through systems. That's all you, baby. Okay, well, it should be. It should be. Okay. And then the tech. So if you're trying to help someone imagine what their world would look like with this new software, screen mock-ups. Night and day improvement on understanding. I get 50% more requirements if I do screen mock-up. How many of you get to wireframe or screen mock-up? A couple of you. How many of you have to give it over to a UI UX person to screen mock-up? How many of you just toss a bunch of words over the fence and hope the screen comes out the way it's supposed to from the developer? Okay, this is where I am going to say. I have a software development degree. Did really well. Took one thing away. Not it. So not it. And I understand how the developers think, and I love them dearly. They're some of my favorite people in the world. But you notice that you can tell when they designed the screen. Yep. Sorry. Okay, scope models. Again, this is you. You're the one that understands what are the people, process, data, and technology that serve a purpose in an organization. Now, what does this help you tell? What story does this help you tell? What is it that we're really talking about? So the claims example thing I told you, the claims system, working with the claims, and it's under here, you can't see it, I'm sorry. But the claims system touching the claims process and the claims rep, they said, we need faster claims processing time. Okay, that's what they thought their scope was. When I started having conversations with them, they said, well, that automating it won't help because we're missing a lot of data. Why are you missing a lot of data? Well, because our mobile app doesn't require the claimant to put in all the data right. Well, then that's our scope, not just this. And say, and then the provider, they're better, but sometimes they miss stuff, and then, oh my God, trying to get information from them. Right? Things like that. So we realized that the scope of this, you do the scope of the solution, and then you like use pretty colors or highlights or circles and things like that, and circle what's in scope of change. That forces everyone to be aware of everything that could be impacted that we haven't talked about yet, but visually shows us where our boundaries are with pictures. Don't just talk about it, draw it. Tell your stories that way. And then use case models give you it's almost like story mapping, but it helps you understand, it's story mapping, but strategic, okay? So story mapping just shows you how individual stories, which are actually scenarios in a use case, flow together. This gives you the entire understanding of big chunks of capability and how they relate to one another for a solution to work. So these are pictures you can use to tell your stories. Now, solution proposal. This is where we're getting into architecture, right? I'm trying to help you understand why we should work on what we should work on. This is the solution approach we should have, and these are the functional areas of your business that are critical to it, okay? Now, next layer, roadmap. This is where you say, okay, I know that you want the unicorns jumping over rainbows, but first, we should do just these 3 or 4 things. Now, I know you want the unicorn, so when we do this, we'll try to leave that window open, so we might be able to get, like the cute tail and the ears, but we're probably never putting a horn on that thing. Okay, all right. Solution comparison. When you're working with executives, I have found this super helpful. Now, this is a specific template that we had at Lowe's, and then we tweaked it and we grew it, and it was really, really, really cool. But what it does is it shows 3 solution options next to each other, and it has sections of impact of the business, and it's shapes and lots of color. So executives see that and they're like, oh, well, it's obvious which one we should pick. Well, you probably, that sounds good to me. Is that what you want? Yeah. Now, guess what? I didn't recommend it. So who's on the hook for it working? Done. Done. And then when we're talking big picture and you're trying to, so business case, we know that's a lot of words, right? You've got current, you've got the context of the change. What's the future state? What's the goal? What's the current state? What's the goal future state? What are the solutions we consider? What is this? What is that? Now, again, you're going to show that to an executives and they're going to like read it avidly. Yeah, probably not. But you simplify it with much fewer words, color and shape. Are your executives going to actually look at it? Yes. Now, you probably shouldn't use red because red does not incite the comfort of moving forward. It's just my color, my favorite color, so that's why it's there. But if you really want to get nerdy, think about the color and the where in the brain it actually stimulates so that you can get people to say yes. Yes. Influence. Don't manipulate. Influence. Okay. YBA. Okay. YBA. So what are we trying to sell the idea of? We make it strategic. We make change strategic. It's not chaos. Well, probably still chaos, but at least it's structured chaos, right? Chaos, nothing good's happening. Structure, we're all going to die soon. I'm sorry. That's actually, there's an Adhesius. Dr. Adhesius has a corporate life cycle. And you want to have structured chaos. That's where you get innovation. That's where you get business agility. Too much structure, you fall into aristocracy and then bureaucracy. I'm sure none of you have ever experienced that. But that's where things start failing. And it's really hard to get back on the other side of that hill hump. Okay. So we make it strategy. We build today with tomorrow in mind. We are not going to do it waterfall, but we will do Wagile, if you will. Right. And if you understand the BABOK, you understand IBA, they have this thing called the Agile extension. Okay. And it has 3 ways to do it. It has predictive, it has adaptive, and it has iterative. Most organizations implement Agile this 3rd way, iterative, which causes a lot of burn down problems. You have a lot of under redo. But if you do it adaptive and you constantly evaluate the strategy as you move through your sprints, and you do good requirements and you let the DA work ahead, then you're building today with tomorrow. Okay? And you're still doing it fast. Efficiency. You know, we're trying to show that we want to explain that we can reduce technical debt. We can reduce under redo. That's that thing where I told you, give me 10% more time up front. I'm going to save you 50% or more over the life of it. And I've proven it so many times. But getting someone to let me show them is painful. So I have a story I'm going to tell you that you can use. Root cause. How often do people come to you and say, this is what I need? And you find out like 9 sprints in, that's not actually what they needed. Okay, so we help us ensure we're working on the right things, not just whatever hurts. Sometimes the symptom has nothing to do directly with the cause. So we do that for them. And because we engage the way we do, and we're not just tossing requirements at people, they're engaged with us. We have an opportunity to influence that adoption over time and get them engaged the whole time, right? So this is actually the visual I use, and I tell a story with it. This is how I tell my story of business analysis. When I was doing this at Mid-First Bank, someone talked about how long ago. I guess we already gave that away. But when I went to Mid-First Bank, they had some BAs, but I did it different. I did the strategic thinking. I did the visuals. I did those kind of things. And one day the CIO comes to me and goes, okay, that makes it so much more successful. I need you to get everyone to understand that. And if you find yourself in an elevator with an executive, you need to be able to explain it in that time frame. How in the heck am I supposed to explain everything I do in 90 seconds or less? Oh my, and get them to believe it and buy in? Like what? No. So this is where you're going to be a storyteller that has no visuals. Okay, because it's really hard to show through visuals right away what a BA does. You have to prove it over time, and you have to get them to let you do it. So I came up with a metaphor, and this is what. So when I'm in an elevator with an executive or meet someone new, so what do you do? I'm a consultant, either internal or external, doesn't matter. I help business change things. So what does that mean? Okay, well, I want you to imagine that you want to go somewhere, and you open up Google Maps. and you tell me I want to go somewhere, and I say, okay, well, there are 3 zoos in the city, so which zoo do you mean? And I make sure I understand where you're trying to go. Then what's the next thing I ask you for? And I'm going to ask you that. What's the next thing? What's the next thing that Google Maps asks you for? You validated where you're going, right? You're asking it to take you there. Where are you starting? Right? From where? To where? Now, once I understand those 2 things now, I can help you chart the course. I will look at the difference between those 2 locations. I will identify what the distance is, what different roads we can take. Is there construction on one of them? Is one of them really pretty, but it's going to take you a little longer to get there, but it'll be more fun? Is one straight through the city and could be really, really efficient, but it could be really rough because, lots of stop and start, could be construction, could be traffic. And then once you select, I will help you make sure that you get there. I'll monitor along the way. I'll make sure that we're going the right way. If we run into a problem, I'll help you understand what that means, and I'll help you find an alternate path to get to your destination. Okay? So I'm Google Maps for Business. That's what a BA is. You are Google Maps business. Okay? So that's the story I tell. And then usually they go, oh, well, that makes sense. Okay, well, now you actually have to tell me where you are. Because that's the problem, right? They usually don't. Instant gratification, get there yesterday. I just want to, well, today doesn't work. Just take me where I need to go. Well, I gotta understand what those look like so I can get you there effectively. Okay, so become that storyteller. And that's not working. Become the storyteller. So remember, know your audience. All of those visuals for those different kinds of things, it will depend on who you're showing it to and what the problem is. Right? You have to be ready to know your audience and produce the visuals that are necessary to tell that story and get buy-in. Constantly, and so if you're working with executives, abstract as much as possible. If you're working with technology, you can dig into the weeds. It's okay. They love weeds. Right? Executives going to check out if you give them too much detail. Read your room. Okay? So as you're sharing, if you get a lot of blank stares, you get people like, okay, well, you're losing them, and figure out how to get them back. And if you have extra visuals, shift up the visual, learn and adapt in the moment. Be courageous, be okay. If your environment doesn't use some of these visuals I've shown you for storytelling, I'm telling you, it works. Do it. Be courageous to show them, because sometimes talking to them and you'll never get them to be okay with it. You just have to show them. And so now, mind you, know your audience. So don't go to work and say, Laura said I should just do it and then get fired. No, let's not do that. But, and be creative. Business analysis is most effective when you think outside of the box. The closer you get to a thing, the more of a SME you become. Do your best to get just close enough to ask good questions, be good at analyzing it, and give recommendations. Don't get so close that you're SME. Right? Okay. And then focus externally. When you're telling the story, especially about you and what you do. It's easier when it's about a thing. But it's about, hey, can you just let me do my job? That gets more uncomfortable. So don't worry so much about you and that person catching on or that person liking the conversation. Focus on, if I get them to understand, what kind of a difference I can make for them. Make it about making a difference for the people you're showing the information to, and present it with confidence. Okay. 1 minute over the 1 o'clock time. Look at that. Okay, so any questions about any of that? Did any of it resonate with some of it? Like, I don't know how to do that. Anyone want to talk about how to implement anything? Or do you have a story I didn't talk about? Again, that's so awkward. Okay, so really quick question, because I'm going to do a little bit of pre-work for you. We have so many things we could talk about with this group. Do you guys have anything that you really would like to hear about from a perspective outside of what you've experienced so far?
Earthly enterprise stuff would be interesting for my group.
Like the architecture level stuff?
Architecture.
Okay, architecture stuff. What about, are there any specific techniques outside of the general idea that you would like a deeper dive into that we could get someone to talk to you about? Any of the storytelling tools, visuals that we talked about that you're like, I don't know what that is, can you guys teach me?
I didn't see the responses earlier, but I think the VPN and there's such a focus would be a good topic.
It's fun and it can take, we can do that in an hour. That's more ideally like a 4-hour workshop, but we'll at least give you the ideas. And I already had a presentation. So definitely reach out to your group that's organizing all of this, and they will either find a speaker. I will make myself a bit. I got so many. I have been accused a little bit of being over. I choose to take it as a compliment. So there's a lot of stuff I would love to share with you guys and make you aware of that can reshape the way business analysis is done in Oklahoma. I will be honest. I've done this for companies all over the US and we're a little bit behind in Oklahoma. And the more we all know this stuff, the more your story gets told. The more your story gets told, the more organizations in Oklahoma that understand it. The stronger the VA community gets here, the more we learn together and the more solidified we make our role in the future. And this is why AI. Okay? AI. Who's in trouble the most in our world? Developers, database people, people that build things based on known factors. What will be hard for the current AI, which is not AI, it's machine learning, deep learning, whatever. We won't get into that, but it's not really AI. Before AI comes out, please God no. Before that comes out, until that comes out, what role is hardest for the current AI tools to mimic? You, because you ask questions that I can tell you how many times you've been in a room and someone goes, why did you ask that? And it changes everything. Or how did you come up with that option? Well, because I am a human and I have a creative brain and I've got all this experience and I'm connecting dots that aren't normal to connect because that's what you guys do, right? And people that write the AI don't think like you do. That's really clear, right? So even if AI guides us with our questions, they'll still need a you. And the more you are good at this kind of stuff, the more likely and the more we get better on best practices, the more solid our future stays. So, okay. Thank you so much.